Hi, hello. Welcome to the episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is September the 23rd, 2024. Hopefully, this episode finds you well, in good spirits, and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Monday was solid. I would say we got that lasagna, had to fight for it a little bit, but we got there. No leftovers, no crumbs. Let's see. Hopefully, you had a similar day. Vibes are good. Let's see. It was me back at the office, so to speak, back in the workplace. Overall, work was it was grindy. I'm not gonna lie. It was pretty busy end to end, and I usually will look at my progress and see okay, yeah, we're knocking through the buggies. Things are good. But I was like, oh no, we are not making any movement whatsoever. And then I started noticing at the end of the day, they started sending down skids, which longtime listeners know we don't want to see skids full of cardboard. That's like the worst case scenario for us. So I was trying to handle that, and they're like, "Hey, could you not do those and do the buggies? We need them." And I kind of started snapping on my betters, so to speak, a little bit, just because I do hate the process of them coming down and trying to delineate to me what they want done. And I get it, you need what you need, but you're not doing any kind of future sight, you're not doing any kind of care about anyone else in the warehouse, any other department. You just want your empty cardboard buggy now. And it's like, okay, cool, but you're sending me down stuff that's going to fill up this whole area, and it's already crowded down here. We just don't have the room for skids. And it's like, you guys aren't going to care, and you're going to keep sending down more skids, even if I send you those empty buggies. So I get to a point where I don't care. So it's about really trying to work that out, and I guess all parties meeting in the middle a bit. And I'm like, it's not even October. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was right about the peak thing. Maybe that I was sniffing the right thing. But that was work. Got through it. Done now. It's behind me. Let's see here. Food Corner from last night, it was pretty banger. I definitely enjoyed it. Let's see, what did we make? It was a bit of a, I don't want to say, I kind of want to say scran. It was a bit of a hodgepodge, bit of this, bit of that. I made chili, and then I made a BLT on a bolillo roll, and I gotta say, that thing was banging. I just put a bunch of lettuce, a bunch of tomato, and then, of course, so it has some nice bacon on there. And then my favorite thing to do with a BLT is to add onion. I don't know if that's crazy to some people. And obviously, it's a BLTO at that point, whatever. But that's my thing. That's what I love doing. So I gobbled it up. But on top of that, in terms of the sides, what do we have? Oh, I also had some chicken, a little popcorn chicken action. Got some fries and some onion rings on top of that as well. And I had this Cajun wing sauce I put on all over all of it. It was so good. So really enjoyed my meal last night. That was solid. That was good. I will say another thing that's kind of been pinging me throughout this weekend is money troubles. We're back on our classic problem of being strapped for cash. And, I guess in some ways I'm happy that I was able to hold out this long and not be in dire straits outside of maybe 1 week or so where I was like, okay, this is pretty dicey. I'm kind of sweating it, but we got through that week. Obviously, I'm hoping to do that again, keep defying gravity here. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things where I looked at the budget and I was just like, oh, I can't even cancel enough things or stop doing enough things right now to kind of get back on track. Which always feels bad, right? It always feels bad when you're trying to make ends meet and you kind of realize it's looking like I'm either barely getting there or just coming up short, right? So yeah, I don't know. Send me your energy, or whatever. I'm sure I'll figure it out, But yeah, that's a daily woe, I guess, for right now. What we're going through, what we're thinking about. But yeah, outside of the bullshit, today was a really good day, and I'm gonna call it a good day because I feel like, hey, I'm here now. I'm yapping to y'all, and I feel like there's a smile on my face, So I'll take it. All right. I feel like we're all caught up on the blog. I feel like we're all caught up on my life. Where how am I doing? You know that now. All right. Let's go ahead and do our startup, and we will get into some news. Ooh-wee. All right. First story comes from The Guardian. Israeli strikes kill 492 in heaviest daily toll in Lebanon since 1975 to 90 civil war. At least 492 people have been killed and 1,645 injured. Lebanon's health ministry has said after a wave of Israeli airstrikes on alleged Hezbollah targets that left the country with its highest daily death toll since the end of the 1975 to 1990 war. Civil war. Also, tens of thousands of people fled from South Lebanese towns and villages along the main roads towards the capital, Beirut, in Israel's most intense barrage in nearly a year of cross-border clashes, as sirens were also heard in the northern Israel city of Haifa. The Lebanese health ministry said 35 children and 58 women were among those killed. Obviously, this is very tragic. It's very unfortunate. I feel like something that I definitely wanted to add that I hadn't really added in my coverage like recently with Israel and Lebanon, since like the pagers and stuff like that. A lot of this activity and like this push is because residents, settlers, whoever the fuck is living up in northern Israel, like they want to go back to that area and they can't because of the missile strikes that are coming down from southern Lebanon. So this big push is kind of saying like, hey, we are hearing you guys, we're listening to you guys, we're going to make this area, back to habitable for you, which means, hey, we're going to go through any means necessary to make that happen, which does not explain, it does not rationalize the fucked up, gratuitous violence that's happening right now. But that is, I feel like, the modus operandi for Israel right now, and why they're making this kind of big push, and why they're just shrugging it like, well, if this puts us closer to an all-out war, we're fine with that. If it, the ends justify the means, according to them. I obviously fucking disagree with that. Now, I've often described these kind of situations as like, oh, well, there's a bit of a tit for tat here. Obviously, Hezbollah is firing back missiles. But, like, I know sometimes I fail to really establish that, like, this isn't equal warfare at all. Like, these are the kind of situations where it's like, okay, they can fire, X amount of missiles out of Lebanon, but there's way more coming out of Israel in response to that. Not to mention the missiles that are being shot at from Lebanon are pretty much deflect. They aren't doing anything. Like the whole Iron Dome defense bullshit, that shit's working. So it becomes very lopsided in terms of how this war is fought and the death tolls on this shit, where you have hundreds of people being killed and injured, thousands being injured, thousands being displaced, whereas in Israel, not much is happening. You know what I mean? So I definitely feel like that is worth mentioning in this whole thing. Let's see here. Was there anything else I really wanted to pull from this story before I moved on? No, but there are more details. I will say, definitely if you want to check out this article from The Guardian, they have more, as well as I'm sure there's live tickers coming out of a lot of media outlets as well right now. One thing I did want to leave on was just like, the escalation was so quick. Like, I remember just seeing like, okay, the number was in like 100, and then like it goes over that, and I'm seeing 200 and 300, and then like literally as I'm like working out, I see over 400. So I mean, this has just been an ongoing total, and it's probably sadly only going to rise. All because Israel wants to make sure like, oh, we're securing our defense. It's like, I guess you're allowing people to get back to their little home, but meanwhile you are devastating so many other people, and it's a frustrating thing because it's I know I said I was gonna leave it, I'm not yet, but like the idea they're doing the same thing that they've been doing in Gaza and West Bank, where it's like, oh, we're looking for Hamas, we're looking for terrorists here, and like in this situation, like, oh, the people of Lebanon, don't you understand? We love you. Oh, we're saying this. We're doing this with love right now, but like we gotta get rid of Hezbollah. They're terrorists, and it's like doing that allows them this blank check where they just blow up whoever and do whatever the fuck they want. And Western countries are just overall more or less going to be like okay with it. And I mean, there are going to be some people, and I'm glad to at least see some countries say, hey, okay, this is fucked up, this is wrong, we think this should be looked at or whatever. But overall, at the end of the day, Big Daddy US is going to be like, nah, keep going, keep cooking. And sadly, this shit is just going to be allowed, which is insane. It's also worth mentioning that in response to this, instead of condemning any of these actions, of course, America is just like, oh yeah, we're going to like send more troops. What do you mean more troops? They don't even go in. Like, oh, just in case things get crazy. Which is something I've said in previous episodes, where it's like, this all happens and everybody knows that the specter of the West is just hanging out in the goddamn coast, just waiting. It's like, try it. Actually take it to a point where it actually has to become a war. We'd love to get involved. And that's so crazy. It's so fucking crazy to see. But yeah. All right. Now I've said what I wanted to say there. I guess there's a little bit of a part 2 here in terms of just with Israel business. From ABC News, Israeli businessmen demanded $1 million to kill Netanyahu. Other leaders, police say. This is a story I caught wind of like via the Daily Mail initially, and I just kind of waited, and I was like, all right, let me go ahead and cover this because it doesn't seem like it's getting that much play, which is fine. I know the second Trump assassination, like we're going, like people are pouring into the details there, like reading notes and letters and books from this Ruth guy. I know I said Ralph before. Y'all know I get all the kind of names wrong, but I wanted to at least talk about this, at least mention it for, I guess, the record, but just to say we talked about it. Let's see. Israeli police and intelligence services said they foiled an Iranian plot to assassinate top leaders, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Mati Mamin, a 73-year-old Israeli businessman from the city of Ashkelon, is accused of twice smuggling himself into Iran via Turkey to meet with intelligence officials, directing would-be plots from Tehran. Which, to me, that shows a level of dedication that I don't have in me. Like, yes, I am a podcaster of X amount of daily episodes or whatever. But as much as I love podcasting, as much as I love my little card game hobbies and all the other extra things that I do, I don't know if you're going to say, if I'm willing to, like, hop into a bus or, I don't know, however it's going to take to smuggle me in illegally, not once, but twice, just so I can make a thing happen. Like, there's nothing in the world that I give a fuck about that much. I hate to say it. I don't know. Call me crazy at 34 or just, I don't know, lazy, whatever. I don't know. I'm good. I'm chill. I'm not that passionate. Anyway, my man was. The discussions allegedly included potential plans to attack Netanyahu, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, Shin Bet intelligence chief Ronan Bar, and former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. So, I mean, yeah, these are all big names. And apparently, the alleged plots were intended as retaliation for the killing of Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh, someone we've talked about before, which was a crazy, Mossad, assassination to pull off there. I don't know if they ever really claimed it, but, definitely all the evidence kind of points towards their involvement there. So, naturally, they wanted to get him back there because that was a big, crazy slight. Though I will say, I'm not going to lie to you again, I was expecting to hear something out of the Revolutionary Guard it kind of seemed that they maybe found a way to flip someone in the, Iranian Revolutionary Guard to help set this up. But haven't heard anything about that. So, who knows? But needless to say, this whole attempt, it went belly up. It got found out. They got it before they were able to hatch it or anything like that. And I think that's why that this has kind of gone by the wayside, because it's just like, okay, cool, but they knew about it the whole time and they got ahead of it. So, kind of done deed there, done data. But I did feel like it was at least worth mentioning on the pod. Once again, I'm sure there's more details, but we can just sidestep it. We can say we talked about it. Moving on, actually going to take it to the States. There was a government shutdown talk, but y'all know how I feel about government shutdowns at this point. I covered that shit like very vehemently, like it was like a real ass fucking thing. Listening to like what people were telling me, like, hey man, this is the thing that happens. It gets really passionate, but maybe it could happen. Maybe, just maybe. And so I'm thinking, oh shit, man, oh my god, it's just gonna actually happen because it has happened before, you know. But this one got averted. That's why I was like really mum on it. And granted, it hasn't been averted yet. I should add that, but it does look like they solved the issue for now, as they tend to do. It just kind of became a thing that they wanted to kind of like arc up for political points, but then kick like a political football, as they often do. But let's dig in. From CNN. Speaker Johnson unveils short-term spending bill, urges members to avoid shutdown. House Speaker Mike Johnson laid out the next plans to avert a government shutdown in a Sunday letter to his members. Johnson's plan, known as a Limited Continuing Resolution, or CR, would fund the government until December 20th and include $230 million for Secret Service funding. I love this dude. I love this because it's like, oh, we have Donald Trump, a guy who refuses to listen to anybody about staying in, being careful, being mindful. And it's like, okay, he's got to go. He's got to go golf. He's got to go to his fucking big rallies out in the open. You guys have to make it happen. Mind you, this is not a current president. It is a former president. You just have to make it work. And because he's been attempted, like someone's attempted to assassinate him, not once, but twice, now we have to spend more taxpayer money so that we can put more bumbling ass idiots to cover his ass. Like, look, I'm not defending the Secret Service at all here. I'm just saying you're asking for them to like be magicians, and they simply are not magicians. And I think that that's something that sometimes people don't mention when they talk about this shit, and they just go, yeah, the Secret Service is crazy. Like they're not doing enough. They're fucking up. And it's like, look, I'm not defending these motherfuckers. They've been fucking up since JFK, or probably even before that. But at the end of the day, like, you can only do so much here. You once again, to bring it up again, you cannot defy gravity. You know what I mean? So just be happy there's only two, and that at the end of the day, they are over 2 and killing this man. All right, look, goddamn. Unaliving him, whatever. I don't know. I sometimes I think about a censor on TikTok, and sometimes I don't. Let's see here. So there was another thing in this bill that was very annoying, and I'm glad it's seemingly taken out. It was the SAVE Act thing. Essentially, it was like a nuisance bill where they were like, hey, we want to stop illegal immigrants from voting. And it's like, you fucking dummies, that's already a thing. You cannot vote in that situation. Like, what are you talking about? If you're an illegal immigrant, you cannot vote. Like, duh. And then they're like, well, we want to make sure. We want to make double sure. We want to double wrap it, okay? And it's like, this is so unnecessary. You're only doing this once again for political points, and because Daddy Donald Trump said, I want to see this fucking shit happen. It's our way or the highway on this shit. And I'm glad that at least Johnson has the fucking political tact to understand that it's like, okay, I know I said the shit. I talked a big fucking game. But look, Chucky, Charles, I'm talking about, Chuck Schumer here. Essentially they sat down and they worked out something. And it looks like it's good to go. And, it's kind of like a meeting of both sides here. They're cutting out that SAVE Act bullshit. They're going to more or less get the money to the things they want to give it out to the Secret Service, to, like, I don't know, put Trump in a bubble, but then he won't be in the bubble, so therefore it's like, this is crazy. Anyway, but we'll see. I mean, there is a chance for this to hiccup, and if so, then okay, I'll be here to cover it. But I at this point don't like covering these things unless it's a surefire thing. So let's knock on wood and hope that I don't have to cover this shit, and we'll be talking about it again in December. Because I think this shit is stupid. I think it's very dumb that these guys cannot come up with some stuff to like help us tackle our debt and like things of that nature. Like, they would just rather sit here and yap at each other and waste everyone's time and waste taxpayers' fucking dollars to do nothing for us, to just literally kick a football down the fucking road. Like, come on, dude. Like, y'all could easily do this shit, and every time you just waste session after session after session not doing it. Trying to get, once again, those political little points. Just, look at what we're doing. Don't you see me, constituents? I'm doing the thing you think you want. So fucking dumb, bro. Tomatoes for all of them. Anyway, that's as much as I wanted to say about that shit. This one is something I realized I hadn't covered, and it's so weird because it's obviously a very fucked up, sad thing, but it put me on a weird like trip down memory lane because I realized like, oh, this was something in the gray areas of like news that like I didn't cover, I didn't focus on at this moment. But then months later would become something that I became, it became like an all encompassing thing to me because I was on the beat of like reading and looking for stories to talk about and things of that nature and really seeing all these fucking dark trends that happen in America or happen internationally in the world. So not to make something that's really fucked up about me, but just, you know, kind of a correlation to the podcast and, you know, the world. Anyway, let me go ahead and take my last break and we'll get into said story, which once again is really sad and really fucked up. But, you know, sadly a classic American tale, unfortunately. I had to like weed through my my memory banks to be like, did I cover this? Is this thing? Is it that thing? And it's like, no, this was something that happened literally about a month or so before you and your former co-host started doing Now and Then. So I know I'm doing a lot of prelude here, but let's go ahead and take our last break and we'll get into it. Ooh. Ooh-wee. Excuse me. From the Associated Press. Gunman who killed 10 at a Colorado supermarket is sentenced to life in prison. A mentally ill man who killed 10 people at a Colorado supermarket in, excuse me, in 2021 was sentenced Monday to life in prison for murder after a jury rejected his attempt to avoid prison time by pleading not guilty by reason of insanity. It's also worth noting something I learned here is that like mental illness is not enough. Like this is a person who it was established he has like certified schizophrenia. He's a schizophrenic, but like essentially in Colorado they made it like no, you have to be insane to actually plead insanity. Essentially saying like you have to have been so mentally ill that like you had no grasp of right and wrong, like seemingly throughout period, like, and it led you to do something illegal, criminal, and for that now you can plead insanity. But like no, you're just mentally ill, which I'm like, this kind of hair splitting once again is crazy. It kind of goes back to that motif to me where we're like, oh, let's lock up the fucking parents, where it's like once again as Americans, we have decided that we are going to go into the minutia of humanity instead of tackling the guns. Instead of saying, hey, we could just put on these things to make this at least a little bit easier. No, we're going to just punish people as hard as we can and be as brutal as we can about it and punish as many people as we can and get the strongest, biggest area of effect on this shit. And that is how we're going to tackle this problem. That's it. Instead of, once again, just doing anything about the guns. We don't care. Like, this is how we're going to tackle it. That's how I feel it. But anyway, let's actually look into it. A mentally ill man who killed 10 people at a Colorado supermarket in 2021 was sentenced to life in prison for murder after a jury rejected his attempt to avoid prison time by pleading not guilty by reason of insanity. Victims' relatives recounted in pain testimony the lives gunman Ahmad Alissa destroyed in 2021 in the attack in the college town of Boulder. To the person that's done this, we hope that you suffer for the rest of your life. You are a coward, said Nikolina Stanisic, whose only sibling, Nevin, was killed. I hope this haunts the defendant until the end of time. The defendant deserves the absolute worst. I mean, there's a lot of testimonials in here. Not all are like that. Some are like, look, I want to forgive you, even though you haven't even, like, said you're sorry for this shit. Like, I want to find it in my heart, too. But, you know, here I am, just doing the best I can with it. I know I'm paraphrasing here. But this was a case, like I said, this took place, I think, in March. And very gruesome, very brutal. Like, this man just more or less hops out with like an AR style rifle and just starts killing people. There's moments where he's overheard like saying like, "This is fun," and like that's crazy to hear that multiple times in the situation. But essentially, the defense is like, okay, yes, he did this, but he was not mentally well. He was a schizophrenic. He was diagnosed with this. He had like bad like killing voices, as they described him, in his head. And he wasn't in the right state of mind when he did this, and that should be taken into account. But essentially, like I said, with Colorado, they're like, that's not going to carry here. He wasn't actually crazy enough. And I know it's one of those things where you hear that, like, well, he was mentally ill a lot, and they go into, like, a lot of, like, well, they went through this and this and this, and it was a lot of trauma. But it's like, when you literally hear, like, no, this person was a schizophrenic, like he was diagnosed with this shit. Like, we aren't just fluffing this up or anything like that. And once again, I'm not asking or thinking or wanting this guy to have any kind of leniency or anything like that, but it just kind of goes to show that, no, in Colorado, the system has evolved and is advanced enough to be like, nah, we're sidestepping that shit. He's guilty. We're going to prove it. He's guilty. And let's just get to this sentencing. Which, hey, I'm at least glad in the situation we're not talking about a death penalty. I think that's in and of itself the best of a bad situation here. Granted, I mean, you argue being buried alive for the rest of your life is not exactly, a win in any kind of way. And some say it's worse than death. So who knows? I did want to get into some logistics about this because I know I've said it already, but like, once again, this is something that took place before I was even doing it. Usually I can vaguely at least say like, hey, we've covered this before, but like I literally had to go back into my like archive and be like, no, I haven't. Like, this was before we started in April. This shit was in March, and I'm trying to go back in my fucking memory banks. Y'all know I'm so bad with fucking time, and my memory is garbage. But I really don't remember this. Like, I kept like going back, and I was going back to the Baltimore thing, and that's not this. It's definitely different. But guess we will kind of read a little bit of details here. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit brutal. Alyssa started shooting immediately after getting out of his car in a King Soopers store parking lot in March 2021. He killed most of his victims in just over a minute and surrendered after an officer shot him in the leg. I guess that's when it wasn't fun for him anymore. The daughter of killed Officer Eric Talley lamented the life milestones they would not be able to share. Madeline Talley and her mother said they would not hold on to bitterness, extending their forgiveness to Alyssa. He taught me to believe that God brings good out of evil, Madeline Talley said of her father. Others weren't ready to forgive. Robert Olds, whose niece Ricky was killed, said Alyssa's family should have been held criminally responsible because of their ignorance and I know I can't say this word for some reason. Inactiveness, whatever, and inaction led directly to the attack. And you see what I'm saying here? It's that spore of thought, because you've already seen this work in the judicial system with the Crumblies, where it's like, yeah, the whole family should. And I'm sure that it's brought up here that like Alyssa wasn't from here, or at least I know his family was like from Syria. That has nothing to do with this. There was no like religious or any kind of, external reason outside of this person just wanted to do it. But that mindset does not work. Hold on, yeah, let me read this part here. Several members of Alyssa's family who immigrated to the United States from Syria testified that he had become withdrawn and spoke less a few years before the shooting. He later began acting paranoid and showed signs of hearing voices, they said. And his condition worsened after he had gotten COVID-19 in late 2020. So, yeah, I'm not sure necessarily if he's from here or not, but his family immigrated to the United States from Syria, was what I was saying. But Alyssa was diagnosed with schizophrenia after the attack, and experts said the behaviors described by relatives are consistent with the onset of the disease. So, do I think that should get him a free pass? No, but I think it's crazy to try to put that burden on the family. I get it. you are a victim, you are subject to grief, you're going through it. But to suggest that is also evil to me. You know what I mean? Is you want to spread more pain, and that might make you feel better. So you're seeking it out. And once again, I know I've said this shit before. I'll keep saying it again. It is why I don't want to see that shit. And it's like, whoa, these people are culpable. Like the Crumleys were culpable with the one guy and his son. Was it Colt Gray or whatever the fuck? Like, but this is the kind of attitude that starts to spread with that shit to me. You know, I mean, people start saying, "Oh, I wish I could just get this whole family. They should all go to jail. They should all be locked up or worse." But it's like, that's not going to bring your son back. It's not going to bring your niece, your daughter, whatever. It's not going to bring these people back. It's not going to give you the closure you want. You know, it's just more punishment for punishment's sake. So I really feel like that is something to note and leave here with this. Because, I mean, shit, just talking about memory lane. When I first came into this shit, I don't know if these thoughts I had were formed as much as they are now. Not to say that it's like, oh, I'm already there. Or they're subject to change. I'm a human being. I realize that, the things and the way I felt at the beginning of this shit are not the same as now. And that's a good thing. And I'm glad that I try to do my best, despite me being a stubborn asshole about a lot, that, like, I try to be flexible. I try to listen to what y'all say, when you actually talk to me. Not when you leave crazy comments and be awkward. But, like, when you actually have conversations with me, when people actually are giving me their perspective, I do try to listen. Because I do tend to glean and learn something from that. Whether or not I fully agree or not. But, I mean, Lord knows, I've come a long way. And I really appreciate y'all just being here. Some of y'all every episode, that's insane. That's crazy. I know not many, but some. I know there's some of y'all out there, and I really appreciate y'all for that. I really can't stress that enough. We're just kind of segueing out into the end here, but yeah, I mean, if you'd like this to just help out, support the effort, I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/IsaiahNews. You become a newsie today. It is towards the end of the month, so top of the month, I do shout outs. Plug a name, plug your name, plug a project if you'd like. Don't have to. You can be a silent donator, of course. We love a quiet newsie. You're just as effective. But yeah, free ways to hit me up, IsaiahNews1@gmail.com. Feel free to follow me or the podcast on any of the socials. Hopefully subscribe to the YouTube. Really helps out a lot. Smash that subscription, smash that like button, leave a comment. Sharing is caring. Any positive high reviews on the Spotify are great. We love a 5-star. You can leave comments on there and do the same. So yeah, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for being a friend, and hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye bye. Mwah.